We can actually see these light trails being recorded in real time. This is so cool. One issue that I maybe have a little bit with it, and I need to look at these images more, is that okay guys, so I just decided to stop on my way home and see what I can do with this long exposure. Right now, it seems like I can just put my phone on a tripod and let it take as long of an exposure as I want, and then it uses AI to not overexpose the entire image, but get you light trails. So let's take a look. This is the first time I've ever tried this. Okay, we stop. Okay, so we're allowed to get a lot of light blur without overexposing the whole image, because if I tried to take this with a normal long exposure, like a 10-second exposure, it would look terrible. In fact, let's just take a 10-second exposure right now in Pro mode. That's terrible. Let's try going with a manual exposure. Okay, as you can see, the smart AI for doing the light trails, it works okay. Let's try it some more. This is like the best possible scenario. We have flashing neon lights behind me. We have cars moving back and forth. We have a tripod. We have cars on the sidewalk. So let's see how good of results we can get. Now, as you guys can see, we can actually see these light trails being recorded in real time. This is so cool. Okay, now let's go ahead and try comparing this versus the GCam night mode. Let's just see what gives us better results. Night mode with light painting and all of the things that the Xiaomi app does absolutely destroys Google Camera. It's like it's Photoshop plus taking the smartest exposure possible for me. And I'm getting results that I would normally have to use a computer and spend a bunch of time in Photoshop editing. Wow. Okay guys, so after reviewing some of these images, it really is amazing. Now, the one issue that I maybe have a little bit with it, and I need to look at these images more, is that they're not utilizing the tripod to reduce noise and the overall exposure, whereas Google is using a lot of advanced algorithms to line images up to give you better dynamic range. Xiaomi isn't quite doing that, but they are making amazing photography really, really easy to do. I'm gonna go ahead, shoot some more images with both GCam and this new Xiaomi cam, and let's go ahead and review them in the studio. Before we go any further, if you guys want to see full resolution examples of these images, I will have a link to them up on my website, and I'll have a link to that in the description down below. of these new Xiaomi night modes, and how, at least in my opinion, one of the biggest shocking, amazing things about this update is the fact that it allows people without the technical knowledge to take this, to get to learn and experiment with composition and framing. And really, if you're trying to get into photography, if you're trying to get your feet wet, if you're someone that's not a big photographer, having these options that make it so that you really only have to think about composition, it opens the door for a lot of non-camera phone photography people, or even a lot of non-photography people, to become photography people. Now, after reviewing these images, there's a couple of things that are abundantly clear.
Number 1.
First is that Xiaomi is trying to make this type of long exposure photography simpler and more accessible to more people. Not that they're trying to give you the best quality.
Number 2.
Doing a couple of back-to-back comparisons between images I took with GCam and images I took in this mode, it's really clear that Xiaomi is taking a shorter exposure for the full scene and then just painting in lights as they go by and doing a type of tone mapping. What this leaves us with is really cool looking images that still have more noise than necessary.
Number 3.
I think ultimately we could get some really interesting effects if we tried using the astrophotography mode for light trails in cars, or the star trail thing, but you're gonna have to kind of do experimenting with how the application stacks images and then processes noise for your specific scene. What I maybe would have liked to have seen was an option in all of these modes for if you're using a tripod, or even better, if it just used the internal accelerometer to sense whether or not the device was moving so that it could reduce noise even further. Whether or not this is a GCam killer or a GCam astrophotography mode killer, it depends on what the exact effect you're trying to get out of your camera is. I think in a lot of ways, this does kill GCam for the versatility and the ability to do a lot of creative things really easily from your smartphone. But it doesn't matter what I think, it matters what you think. So let me know in the comment section down below, do you think that this is an absolutely GCam killing feature? Is this something that surprised you to see Xiaomi making? Because obviously it took a fair amount of time to go ahead and do the coding and do the programming necessary into bringing these features to hardware we already have.